Film preservation is something we've never really taken to heart in South Africa, with so many of our films being lost for all eternity in the vaults of the National Archives. It's really refreshing to see an innovative company like Gravel Road Media not only taking the initiative, but also putting their money where their mouths are as far as full film restoration is concerned. Our Cape Town team chatted to CEO Benjamin Cowley about the process of digital film restoration of some of these lost cult classics.
It's a 7-step process that the film goes through. So first we get the physical print, either 16mm or 35mm. Sometimes we get a print, sometimes we get a negative. And once we get that in, it goes through an inspection that we make sure that there's no damaged perforations, make sure that the splice points, that the film isn't falling apart, so that when we actually put it onto our scanner that we don't have the film breaking. At the same time, we do a hand clean on the film, which is kind of your first pass clean. Then we put it through what's called the ultrasonic cleaner, which is a chemical cleaning process to remove any dust or oil residue, because with these old movies, when they used to run through the film projectors, you often had a bit of an oil residue that would drip onto the actual print itself. So that gets rid of that, and pretty much 90% of any foreign objects on the print. The film then goes to our telecine, which is the process of converting the film into a digital realm. And that's the first time that we're actually able to see the picture. So in many of these films, it's the first time in 40 years that the movie's actually been seen. From there, we take it into film restoration. The audio is actually extracted at the same time. The film restoration is it's a specialized process, goes into specialized software, where the scratches are digitally removed, where any sort of dust or any what would seem as physical damage to the film is actually repaired. Splice points again, you often have like sticky tape marks and things that come through on the film, and that's a frame by frame process. You can imagine that is quite a long process in terms of fixing the picture. But all the while we try to maintain the integrity of the film. Then everything comes together in our final grade, in our Pablo suite, where the picture and the audio are married. We give the film a grade, so we make sure there's continuity in colors, make sure one scene matches to another, because often movies were shot and the same scene was shot at different times of the day, so light conditions are different, etc. But we try and give it a uniform look. And then we put on the subtitles and we export it to whatever format we need it for, whether it be broadcast, DVD, online, whichever format we need. We originally started this initiative from a preservation perspective. You know, we came across a number of films from a specific era in South African film that seemed to have been lost. While they were being looked after by the National Film and Video Sound Archives, we found that accessibility was a big issue. The project started with a film called Joe Bullet, which was produced in 1971. It took 18 months to produce the film. It was released in 1973, and it starred the late Ken Gampu, Abigail Kubeka, the late Koki Tubal, and that film was banned after its second screening because it portrayed a black character with a gun in it. So it was kind of an all-black world, James Bond kind of character who fought corruption in the soccer leagues.
He's the man who fights evil. He's the man.
We've got Zulu language, westerns, we've got buddy cop movies, comedies, creature features, you name it. That whole era, the 80s, which was what was known as the B scheme era, because there was a financial incentive for producers to produce content, kind of had a mimicking of what was happening in Hollywood at the time, albeit much lower budget versions of it, but there's so many interesting, almost cult type, niche type films that came out of that. From a financial perspective, we're obviously licensing to the local broadcasters, and then going on to various VOD platforms, DVD, those kind of platforms where we can actually monetize the content. From a heritage and a legacy perspective, we feel very strongly that there should be a government involvement of sorts from a Department of Arts and Culture perspective to help drive the process, because again, you know, we're now acknowledging a part of our history that has been kind of neglected. We legally cannot digitize any of the films unless we have ownership or copyright to those films. So long before the process of actually getting the physical film into our stores, we have to go out and actually find. So the moment that we establish that there's a title out there, we have to try and find the original producer or production company behind the film. And there again, the challenge is one of, you know, this is it's an aging generation, so we're dealing with a lot of people's families, deceased, estates, those kind of elements come into it. And then we have to legally acquire the film, so we get assignment of the rights, and then we take it to restoration. We've got 160 films now that we're busy working on. We're increasing our library to 350 by the end of the year. So there's a lot of content, a lot of movies that are going to be coming out. I think in terms of the first batches that are now going to broadcast through Mnet in particular, there's some really nice titles in there where we've got some spaghetti type western, but Zulu language westerns, guys on cowboys and Indians and all that. So there's some nice variety of content or titles. You know, Umbango, obviously Joe Bullet. There's a sequel to Joe Bullet called Bullet on the Run, which we're hoping to release in the next year as well. You know, once we go into the home entertainment, we categorize internet and IPTV and VOD in that same category. So definitely within the next 12 months, there's going to be a big shift to putting this content onto those platforms. While there's the business behind it, there's important work that's being done by our team from the preservation perspective. And I keep going back to it, and that's because I come in as a passionate filmmaker and the honouring or paying homage to the filmmakers of the past. You know, we really are rewriting history as it's been written, in the sense that, you know, these films haven't been recorded formally. There's no real publications, and those that are out there we're finding more and more are very inaccurate, because they were done at a time when the technology wasn't there to really verify the authenticity of the movies, who was involved and all that. So it was just pulling together resources and memories that people actually published. So we find, while there seems to be some resistance to what it is that we're doing, you know, what makes us obviously feel better at the end of the day is knowing that we're able now to provide an accurate record, which future filmmakers, academics, and obviously our Department of Arts and Culture will be able to benefit from in the long term. That, you know, South Africa had a huge industry, and very, very few people are aware of that. You know, we were on par with Hollywood at one particular point in time when it came to output. And for us, we need to learn retrospectively. We need to learn about the past in order to move forward. There's no point in the various organizations that have been mandated with the development of film and audience development, etc., if we don't look retrospectively into what was done then, because there was a sustainable industry.